Hey everybody, this is Richard Thomas.
And I'm Tiffany Thomas.
And we want to welcome you to the Lionheart Institute podcast 2020. What a damn year was that.
Right, it was rough.
We want to welcome everybody to 2021. Just in case you didn't know, 2020 didn't win, so we didn't put a 1 on 2021 because we wanted to. It's just the next number.
Right.
So welcome to 2021. Let's make it a new beginning, a fresh start. At the Lionheart Institute, we believe this is going to be your best year ever.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit. Break it down for me if you can. This incredible thing called 2020. How about we talk a little bit about the best and the worst?
Yeah, that's a good place to start, I think.
Yeah? Of 2020.
You know, I would have to say, of course, the big one, the coronavirus. You know, it was unexpected. I mean, who would have thought we would have seen another pandemic
coronavirus
in our lifetime?
Yeah.
Definitely didn't see that one coming.
Never.
So, of course, that is probably going to top the list as the worst thing about 2020 is the virus and, of course, the people who lost loved ones and suffered throughout that is definitely something that is still hard to deal with. And my heart definitely still breaks for those people.
And we certainly don't make light of that.
No,
obviously, a little sugar helps the medicine go down.
Yeah.
When you talk about a year as chaotic as 2020.
Right.
Literally locked in the cage of our homes, and some people's cages are nicer.
Right.
Some people's cages are far worse.
Yeah.
Right. I think about all the kids who are in domestic violence situations, and that's really what breaks my heart. Wives or husbands that were at war with one another in 2019, fighting themselves in 2020 face to face.
Yeah.
Without a place or a route of escape, right? And so you think about the coronavirus, there was so much that came good of it, too.
Right.
In the sense of intimacy and forcing people to really slow down, to really care about things that maybe we hadn't paid a whole lot of attention to for a long time.
Yeah.
So there were some benefits, and so I think that there's always, what do they call it, a silver lining in every cloud, right? But it was a dark year as far as dealing with those issues.
Well, you know, you also saw domestic violence go up. You saw suicide go up, substance abuse go up. You saw depression, mental health really skyrocket among, you know, the population around the world, you know, not just here in the United States, but around the world. A lot of people greatly suffered with mental health issues, and unfortunately are still, you know, suffering from that because, of course, we are not quite out of the woods yet with the pandemic. And, you know, there's a light at the end of that tunnel, and we're hoping and praying we're going to see a huge turnaround this year in 2021 with that.
Again, the silver in the lining, though, I think in 2020 we discovered that it was okay to say, I'm not okay.
Yes.
And I think that's an important lesson for a lot of us to really walk out of 2020 with.
For sure.
There's times that you just have to kind of face the music and say, yes, as the book once said, shitty times don't last forever.
Yeah.
Right? Tough times don't last forever is the actual name of the book. Tough people do. But there are things that you're just not going to bully your way through. Right.
Right. And sorry to interrupt, but I think, too, a lot of people brought awareness to topics that hadn't really been talked about among people. And I think that it was such a really good, positive outcome from this pandemic. And, you know, unfortunately, people suffered. But because of that, people are so much more aware. And more willing to have discussions about it. Absolutely.
And so if you find yourself still in that pit, because we're not out of it. I work with a guy that I love absolutely to death. He's a charmer. But every once in a while, he also has that kind of on switch. Yeah. Right? Where he gets really, really angry, raises his voice. There's kind of that outburst. And I talk to him, and it's that sense of depression that still rests inside of our hearts because there's so many things we don't have access to.
Right.
There's so many things that we used to find joy in that we no longer find joy in. And there's almost this acceptance where people don't think it's going to really be gone until the end of 2021. Yeah. Into 2022. Yeah. And so now when you begin to experience a pain you never experienced before, being forced to really lock your life down, and you're projecting that into a future you can't yet see. Yeah. You guys, it's okay to still tell people, hey, I'd like some help. I'd like to talk to a professional. Absolutely. And that's a huge benefit of 2020 is saying that just because you say in this moment I'm weak does not mean that weakness overwhelms you. You can be strong and be weak in certain areas
100%.
or at certain moments, right?
Yeah. And I think a big takeaway with 2020 as well is people had a lot of time for reflection, for self-reflection, for life reflection. And I think one thing that we discovered is that there's a lot of shitty people out there.
Well, I was wondering why all the damn toilet paper was disappearing off of the shelves. I found out why. There's a lot of shitty people in the world.
There's a lot of shitty people. No, obviously there's a lot of beautiful, amazing people out there. But I really discovered that.
And thank you for connecting with us in 2020 on our Facebook and our YouTube channel.
I really just saw people in a very different light.
Yeah.
I think people's true colors and true heart really came out in a way that shocked a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
We saw so many things with racism, with hate, with anger, with sexism, with a lot of the mentalities that have trickled down, of course, from our former president that reflected greatly in the population.
We are free.
Yes, hallelujah.
We are free. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
But we saw so much just disgust with the human population, really, honestly.
A good friend of mine, a guy I really respect, Terry Holloman, he said it probably better than I'd heard anybody say it too, was that there's just some toothpaste you can't put back in the tube.
Yeah.
So there's some things about our neighbors, and I say our neighbors, not physically, but from an emotional standpoint, a relationship standpoint. There's neighbors that it'll be difficult to ever see them the same again, right? It's kind of like going to that high school party. Remember that high school party? Right? Where you happen to see little Johnny.
Yeah.
Think that the pool was still going to be nice and warm, and it's in the middle of January, and so he got butt naked and he jumped in it, and little Johnny was never the same at school again. You just kind of always saw him as the kid, right? Well, there's definitely some people that I, unfortunately, who I've loved pretty much my whole adult life, that will always be little Johnny to me. Like they showed their true idiotic side. Their lack of compassion, their ties to racial injustice and racial hatred and bigotry. That how do you put that stuff back in the tube?
And I have to say, if any of you watching this during 2020 made it through the whole year without unfriending people on social media, you are bigger people than me.
I am.
Yes, I
know. Because I took that shit on like a champion. You should go back, honestly, if you want to laugh, if you want to cry, if you want to see the most interesting interactions, you should look at my dialogues from 2020 on my Facebook page. Because not the Lion Heart Institute page,
but yours.
But my personal page. I'm talking about insanity of insanity.
It was brutal. And you know what? It was rough because we learned so much about the viewpoints of other people. And I think what we came to understand was there was a big difference between Trump supporters and Republicans. And we kind of learned that. We kind of grouped them all together and then started to realize as time went on that there was definitely a big difference. So it became difficult to be able to interact with the people that were true Trump supporters because they would not listen to reason.
There is no logic.
There is no logic. Right. And so,
but then tragically, towards the end of the term, we began to become confused with, well, wait a minute, is there that big of a difference?
Well, Republicans greatly showed their true colors, very much so in 2020. And even into 2021, we have seen a lot come from the Republican Party, and they have a lot to answer for, and they have a lot to make up for to the American people. And honestly, in my opinion, they owe the American people a huge apology for the bullshit they put us through.
And not an apology with words. Let's not be juvenile. We don't need you to start getting on your woe is me and we're so sorry and we didn't know. That's not what we need. We need justice, and we need
truth.
We need truth. We need you to vote differently. We need you to approach, even if you remain Republican, which I respect and I understand. We need you to approach your Congress people differently, your senators differently, your mayors differently. We need to know that we're not going to have jackasses running our country. Yeah. Right?
Well, I mean, we saw that with the certification of Biden on the electoral votes, right? So here we have all these Republicans who are standing up saying, I'm going to object to the certification of Biden as president. I'm going to object to the electoral votes based on the fraud that Trump, spent months and months.
Swirled into a hysteria.
Yes. So we saw this prior to the certification, all these people saying that. We saw this, the day before the certification. Of course, we had the Georgia runoffs with, woo, woo, go Georgia, go Georgia. Yeah. Mwah.
I still got Georgia on my mind.
Yeah, so with the win of 2 Democratic senators in Georgia, which was huge, and then the following day we have the certification of Biden. And so we had all these people going into it saying, I'm going to object. And then we had the most unexpected thing happen.
But was it unexpected?
No, it wasn't, because the president at the time told people to go storm the Capitol.
Right.
We have Senators Cruz from Texas who says, go storm the castle. Basically, it's a revolution.
Right.
We need to fight for this revolution. And we had Senators
people being pulled out of the Capitol.
Right.
Saying it's a revolution.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So now we have, the first time in our history, in our lifetimes, we have an insurrection incited by an actual sitting president. We have people who are storming a Capitol prepared to essentially take hostages and overturn a democracy by saying, hey, it was fraud. We're trying to save the republic. We're trying to save democracy. We are the true patriots.
I'd be really interested in the dialogue in our below section. In the comments. What your true thoughts on that are. Obviously we want to be passionate about our country. We want to be patriots. But I'd be interested to hear the dialogue begin to erupt in our comment section, just about what the true thoughts are on that struggle and the riot at the Capitol. Now that we're a few weeks out from it, right?
Well, and now of course, that riot did affect the voting and the certification of Biden. A lot of Republican senators and House representatives stood up and said, I can't support this. I can't support the actions of these people in an election.
The anarchy, the chaos.
It's just right. And I am going to stand by the majority of the people's votes, which was for Biden, and support that.
Sure.
And
overwhelmingly.
So I think, there's still a handful that are still adamant that it was a fraudulent election. Those senators and representatives are having a very difficult time right now, as they should.
Yeah.
And but we saw a huge change and a shift. And I think Republicans, some of them even came out. You have Senator Lindsey Graham, who came out and said, it wasn't true.
Right.
Trump's claims wasn't true. We just need to be honest with the American people. He needs to tell them the truth, and we need to move on from this. We need to let it go, because this is what's come from telling lies for so long.
Well, and the truth is it had a huge impact on what happened in Georgia.
Yeah,
which is going to have a huge impact on at least the next 2 years of government in the United States. And let me say this, for all of you who say, hey, I saw the videos.
Right.
I read the testimonials or the affidavits. I saw the proof. Now, there's a lot of proof that I was promised.
Yeah.
Some of which, come on, y'all need to pay up. You made promises.
Yes, you did.
Based on that election that you were going to pay me now. Come on, stop hiding. That he wasn't going to be nominated. It was going to be overturned.
Yeah.
That it was a fraudulent election.
Yep.
Listen, if there are things wrong with the election, now is the time to address it.
Yeah.
Okay?
To fix the problems.
I'm not saying never approach a presidential election and say, hey, let's make sure this is fair. Let's make sure it's just. Let's make sure we've dotted our I's and we crossed our T's. But really now is the time to do it. Ice Cube, you're out there, I know, and people that support, and we'll get into this a little bit, hopefully, as well.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, and how do we get justice for the black community? Now is the time. There's been a change of regime.
Yeah.
We need to be aggressive about addressing the things that we were aggressive about at the end of that election, and that the whole world watched basically the United States of America self-implode and almost burn itself to the ground, right? Now is the time to raise your voice.
Absolutely. And look, nobody is saying that there aren't ever issues with elections. There's always issues with elections. I mean, that's throughout history. Obviously not enough on the scale that Trump tried to make it out to be, but, there are areas that can be fixed and should be fixed. We've dealt with voter suppression. We did a video on that because of the importance of understanding that. Those are things that still need to be, right. Those are things that still need to be addressed and still need to be fixed,
100%.
So by all means, let's come together as a democracy, as a people, and say, okay, we need to fix some areas. We got 4 years into the next presidential election. Let's make some changes.
And the truth is, I feel like we won the battle.
Oh, absolutely.
But we still need to win the war for justice.
Yes.
And that's true for Republicans as it is for Democrats as well.
Right.
And what is probably going to end up happening before it's all said and done, an independent party that begins to emerge out of this.
Yes.
It's going to be a very interesting process, right? The GOP, in many ways, has been shattered. Right?
I think they may be done. Honestly, I think they have done so much irreparable damage that I am not sure they are ever going to be able to be the GOP anymore. I think that there's going to have to be significant changes to their philosophies, the way they see the American people, the way they treat the American people. Their interaction of vote
and their interaction of policy.
Right. Yeah. Clearly, one of their biggest things is their moral high ground that they choose to always take.
And they shattered that.
And they shattered that by supporting somebody who had no moral compass whatsoever.
Right.
And, so they have a lot to answer for. And people believed in them. They believed in the idea of the values that they held true to, and they just kind of just destroyed it all.
And Lionheart Institute, if you are out there listening and you're at this point right now, I would love to hear your comments on character of leadership,
for sure,
versus policy, right? America tried to sell us on the idea Trump's character didn't matter.
Yeah.
His style didn't matter.
Yep.
The way that he presented his virtues didn't matter.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden now we're trying to hold Biden accountable in his first 3 days for his fruit, right?
Yeah.
So I say that to say fruit is what really matters, right? What are the numbers? What are the stats? So if you're a Republican and you want to argue the point that Trump's character didn't matter, look at the fruit. Look at the outcome of that. If you're a Democrat and you want to say that, hey, it really doesn't matter what happens in America is a sense of policies being changed. All that really matters is that person a good guy or a good gal. Let's get into a place where both matter, right?
Right. I mean, when you say, Trump's character doesn't matter. Okay. Well, then we end up now in history as having a president who basically, did commit sedition along with borderline treason against his own country that he swore to protect and listen to the people and do what is right by the people for this country. And when you don't judge a man's character and say it doesn't matter, this is what you end up with.
And you have a wide variety of people, from black people, brown people, Asian people. Many of which who say Trump was a staunch racist. Right? Yeah. Many of which to say that he wasn't a staunch racist, right? But we definitely have the whole picture from his cabinet, his office, presenting white supremacists.
Oh, yeah.
In the same light as they would try to paint the BLM movement. Not just Black Lives Matter organization, but the movement, the sentence. They would try to lump that class against white supremacists.
Yeah.
And it's exposed really the heart of America, where we would say that there's some broken systems. It is really not exposed that there's some broken systems. It's exposed that it is our system.
Right. Well, I mean, if you look at the insurrection at the Capitol, for example, you're talking about a lot of people who decided to, some hang out there, some actually break into the Capitol. We definitely saw the videos and the pictures of those people who most of them have been arrested and will be charged with sedition along with a lot of other felonies and crimes for what they did. But what we saw went so beyond just a president inciting people to overturn democracy. We saw racism at one of its truest forms.
Tell it, sis.
Because the truth is, when throughout the summer, I think it was July, when there was a Black Lives Matter protest, just a nonviolent walking hand-in-hand protest, they had military, tons of them standing guard outside the Capitol. And I guarantee you, had it been Black Lives Matter protesters who decided to break into the Capitol, I would say we would have had a bloodbath on our hands. Hundreds of people probably would have been shot and killed. And not only that, but the rest would have definitely been arrested, and they would have been given the highest punishment they could possibly have gotten.
Sure.
And the disgusting thing is half of these rioters in the Capitol who were arrested have all been released and are sitting at home in their own beds just chilling until their court dates.
Now, these issues aren't going to disappear.
Right.
Many of these people are going to see time in jail. Right?
Eventually.
They're going to pay stiff fines, some of them, right? There's going to be some consequences to the actions that they took. However, the imbalance in the way that it's adjudicated, in the way that the whole process unfolds, shows the reality of white supremacy in our country, and the word that is a trigger word for so many of my brothers and sisters, even though I use it not to hurt, not to offend, but white privilege is a reality in the world that we live in. And what the assumption is, see, the white privilege is them assuming that these supporters of Trump had no ill will in their hearts.
Yeah.
Assume that they would do right, be right, act right. They're patriots. What's funny to me is that I thought about this as we were getting ready to film today, is that these same patriots who cussed out one quarterback who decided to kneel, Kaepernick, these same patriots came to the Capitol with pictures of Trump on it, wearing bikinis of Trump, with bikinis of the flags,
with his face all over
his face on it. They used the flag to beat people with.
Yeah.
They trampled the flag.
Yep.
So these same people who said that it was disrespectful of Colin Kaepernick to silently, peacefully protest without disrespecting anyone or disrespecting the flag.
Yeah.
These same people in mass came out with nothing but contempt for our American flag. Some of which, and I heard rumor that one of them was a Canadian even, carried the Confederate flag into the middle.
Wow. Something that has never been done in the history of this country. We have never had the Confederate flag stand in our Capitol, ever. And there's a reason. It is not some tradition to be upheld and to be praised and to be talked about in honor. It is not. It is a stain on this country's history, and the Confederate flag should be burned.
It should be more than burned. But what cracks me up, and we'll get to some of these Hail Marys of pardons, but watching the interviews of some of these, and I'm going to call them precious. I'm going to call them you beautiful heart. You precious soul.
Yeah.
I'm going to call them beautiful. These beautiful protesters have been on national television saying that they should all have received pardons from President Trump.
Absolutely.
The truth of the matter is based on him as a president and them following his wishes.
Yeah.
They should be getting pardons.
Right, because they're only following
if their revolution would have won. However, you failed to win the revolution. Or, frighteningly, I say that with a laugh because to me, you can only laugh through it, right?
Yeah.
Or I'm going to cry through it. The truth of the matter is, sadly, there are still people protesting.
Yeah.
There are still people planning insurrection.
Yeah.
There are still people openly calling for treason. Now they're calling it patriotism.
Yes.
They're calling it not protest, but they're calling it revival. Even if we would go to the church and talk about how you talk about the worst thing about 2020 to me was the reality of what the church revealed about its heartbeat towards people.
That broke my heart.
It did because
it disgusted me and outraged me and truly broke my heart.
And not only its stance towards immorality, right?
Yeah.
Or judgment, or looking at people as you looked at the way the church handled all of these different racial issues, Blue Life Matter, and so forth. But what really broke my heart is that they would say that character does not matter, integrity does not matter when it comes to Trump. But I have people telling me a person who confessed Christ as their Lord and Savior, Biden, and Obama, can't be Christians because they deem it so. I actually saw a young youth pastor, he's not young anymore, who put a poll on his Facebook page or his Instagram, I can't remember what. How many of you think that Biden is a Christian? As though they were going to vote his way in or out of heaven based on the way that they saw politics and the way that they saw policies and the way that they saw how we should be running our country.
Yeah.
God forgive him is all that I can say.
Yeah.
And this is a young man that took over the youth pastorate at a church that I was at. But the worldview is so different than it was just 12 months ago. And the reality of the church has been revealed amongst the nations. And church, it's time for us to repent.
Yes.
It's time for us to get right, do right, and be right. And that means searching our own hearts and saying, hey, what would cause me to stand by a man with with my whole heart, my whole mind, my whole conviction, who said, and I say it as clearly as he said it, so don't you damn get near a drop of judgment.
Yeah.
He said before he was even elected, grab him by the pussy.
Yep.
Now, I've seen some foul things in my life. I've said some foul things in my life. But that doesn't matter.
Right.
You have to judge the man by his integrity, by his character, because that is what's going to follow.
I mean, this man also made fun of a disabled reporter in the most disgusting way on national television, and people applauded and laughed. And it's just, I find it disgusting that people want to take a moral high ground, especially from churches and believers saying, hey, we support Trump. He's God's chosen person. Why? Because he claims to be pro-life. That's really what it fucking comes down to, is because you think that he is anti-abortion, then all his other bad habits, bad character flaws, bad behavior goes out the door. It's just, we're just not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on, his policies. We're going to focus on the good that he's done. We're just going to not talk about that. But God forbid somebody else comes in office who actually reads from the Bible, who says prayers on national television, who holds a beautiful memorial for people who have lost their lives to COVID in a beautiful ceremony. And people are saying, well, how many of you think this man's a Christian? Because he's pro-choice, so he can't really be a Christian. I mean, it's just disgusting to me.
And I really wish, and I know we get passionate about certain topics, right? I'm not anti-Republican.
No, not at all.
I'm not anti anyone. My heart is full of love towards people.
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is the statement pro-life, I am pro-life. But that does not mean that I'm not pro-choice.
Right.
Because, see, my choice would be to be pro-life.
Yeah.
But I don't hear anyone running around really saying, I'm pro-abortion, I'm pro-abortion.
Nobody runs around doing that.
That's not the heartbeat of the movement.
No.
And the reality is that we're judging people by hypocrisy rather than judging people by the truth. I mean, I had an in-depth conversation with a gentleman who claimed that the only thing that mattered, and if you're pro-choice or you're pro-life, particularly pro-life, the only thing that matters is the numbers. Right?
Yep.
The only thing that matters is the number of babies that we lose based on the policy, right?
Yep.
But you've got to get down to the nitty-gritty of the truth.
Yeah.
If we judge them by the fruit, if we judge it just by the fact of how many abortions there are, the reality is this: there are far more abortions in comparison between Democrats and Republicans during the time that Republicans are in office than the times that Democrats are in office.
Yep.
So you need to get off your high horse and stop making judgments based out of ignorance and just based out of emotion, and look at the truth of the numbers. Because when you give somebody a choice, you also have to give them the truth. And when you give them the truth, you're giving them various options to make good decisions based on what's best, not for you, not based for your comfort in the place that you sit, in your high place of judgment, but based on that individual and what they believe is right for that potential life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, the truth is, it is not our place to judge whether somebody is a believer of Christ or not. That is not our right. nor our place to do. And to do that based on an assumption is even worse.
Drum roll, please. Can we breathe now? See, we're passionate here at the Lionheart Institute
We are.
about pursuing things not just based out of emotion, but based on truth. And that's why we talk a lot about Stoic philosophies. We talk about living our lives by 7 virtues, right? Christian principles, Catholic principles. We talk about making good decisions out of a Stoic mind, character, virtue, integrity, wisdom. We talk about those types of things. Because without it, you just are kind of like a chicken with your head cut off,
Right.
running from emotional experience to emotional experience.
Yeah.
And we don't want to be caught doing that. We want to live our life based on truth, based on principles, and we want it to manifest into something that's beautiful, not only for ourselves but for the country that we live in.
Right. I mean, really, honestly, the biggest thing that I know we've talked about it and we have tried to address is just, it comes down to hypocrisy. Just check yourself. Check your heart. Really is what it comes down to. Because it's not our place to judge. It's
Right.
not. And the truth of the matter is, the Bible tells us to pray for our leaders.
And we should.
And pray for our politicians. And we should. And not for their downfall. Not for them to...
Not for judgment on...
No,
yeah.
and that is what people are praying for. They're praying for God to win the war and Biden somehow, gets booted out and the world is made right again.
Right.
No, pray because the success of our leaders means the success of our nation.
Yes.
So regardless of whether we agree or disagree with their policies or their perspectives or their point of views, if they succeed, we succeed.
Yeah.
And that is really what it needs to come down to.
And it does. There's a certain level where you have to judge people by the fruit in their life.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean judging them and hoping for an ill consequence. I think about the fruit of Trump's life when it comes to these pardons, right? And I specifically think about it in regards to people, these whole 4 terms. He was the most pro-black president in the terms. And they say that because he said that.
Because they believe his lies.
And he said it so often that they believe the lie. I mean, it's an unfortunate reality that if you tell somebody the same lie over and over again, that there's going to be a percentage of people that begin to echo it, not out of a willful desire or out of a spiteful heart.
Right.
They just haven't filled their mind with any other possibility.
Yeah.
And so they just start uttering it as though it's reality. And they even on the way out, they said, see, he pardoned Lil Wayne.
I know. But, can we not forget, I believe it was the 5 black men that he executed on the way out as well?
You're right, yeah. Come on.
So, he executes all these black men right before he exits the White House. But, somehow it's made right because he pardoned Lil Wayne.
Yeah, and let's get this straight. There's a reason why he pardoned Lil Wayne. It's called negotiation.
Yeah.
He sat down with Lil Wayne and said, hey, I need to try to steal a few black votes.
Uh-huh.
I haven't done well in the polls.
Yep.
And Lil Wayne, you're famous. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm going to need you to do is I'm going to need you to get on Team Trump. Yeah. And guess what I got? I got the golden ticket. I'm going to pardon you, right? And so it was a negotiation that if he scratched Trump, and I know you guys are screaming that's illegal, hell if he didn't do it though.
Right. He did a lot of shit that was legal.
Right.
To be honest.
Think about it. He pardoned more people with the name Trump than he did black people.
Oh my gosh.
And that's an exaggeration. Please don't think you need to fact check what I said. You can.
The truth is he pardoned people that were in his cabinet, people that worked for him, that lied for him,
right,
that helped cover up his crimes to the FBI, to law enforcement. He pardoned basically everybody that helped him during the 4 years in the White House that were all corrupt, because most of them were doing his bidding. He was part of the corruption, so he pardons all these people that basically are somehow associated to him. They're all connected to him.
Right.
Obviously, there's a handful that weren't connected to him.
Sure.
But majority and of course, now he gave more pardons than any president in our entire history, mind you. But they were all people he was connected to.
And there are some people that he did end up pardoning that I would say my heart leaped out for Thanksgiving. Mm-hmm. Right. There are some people that he pardoned that way, and I'm thankful for that.
Right.
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 but in many cases, it was a balancing of the scales in trying to negotiate the best outcome for himself.
For sure.
Because we build towards all these dates,
Mm-hmm.
right? That people made bets. I expect you to pay. About when it was going to happen, right? And we'd look for the 6th, and then
Yeah.
look for the 15th, and then
Right.
look for the revolution, and then
Oh,
look to
yeah.
the hills, and then the Congress was going to overturn it, and then the Supreme Court was going to overturn it.
Yeah.
Nobody overturned
No.
it. Okay? And now we come to Inauguration Day.
Yes, but before we talk about Inauguration Day, can I just say, thank you.
Gosh, how much fun was that?
A lot of fun.
That was part 1 of a 2-part series we're breaking this episode into. We just got caught up in some exciting stuff talking about 2020
Yeah.
and talking about going into 2021. So we wanted to break it into 2 segments, and we know that it'll give you an opportunity to catch our second half and share it with a friend. Like it, tune
Yeah.
into it, and make sure that it impacts your life.
Yeah, don't forget to subscribe, especially if you love this video. I know you're going to love the rest of our videos as well. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss our latest episodes. You know, we're really hoping to see a lot of truth and love coming into 2021. But, you know, 2020 was an interesting year, so we would love to hear about your experiences in
sure
2020. You know, good, bad, positive things that came from it, and even positive things that have started to come out in early 2021. Drop us a comment, send us an email. We definitely would love to hear about it.
Absolutely. Thanks for being a part of this. Tune in for part 2.